We're going to be talking with, for our final session, talking with Emily Spencer and Brett Wolff from the University of Kentucky. Emily has been an agricultural extension associate of agricultural economics for nearly 3 years now. She's been with the university for nearly 6 years and works to help producers creatively market their businesses. Brett Wolff is an extension specialist in the College of Agricultural Econ, where he specializes in crop diversification, social science research, and client-focused outreach. He has over 10 years of experience working in food, agriculture, and higher education, and has been with the University of Kentucky for over 13 years. Tonight, they'll be talking about cashless payments, a topic that was already on an uphill trajectory before COVID, but really boomed during 2020 up until now still. And it's an important piece for businesses to at least consider. So here today to make it a little bit less daunting, we have Brett and Emily. Whenever you guys are ready, you can take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Bethany. So like Bethany said, I'm Emily Spencer. I'm here with my colleague, Brett Wolff. We're both from the University of Kentucky Center for Crop Diversification and the Market Ready program. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about, why you should consider accepting cashless payments for your business, and then also talk about how you can. So we're going to actually walk through setting up an account, just a basic Square account towards the end of the presentation. So just like the other presentations, if you have any questions, feel free to just drop them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end.
All right, thanks, Emily. So I'm going to start out talking about the whys, but before I do, I just wanted to say I really enjoyed the first two presentations. Bethany does a really good job of showing, in addition to telling folks how to do things. Her videos and social media stuff that she creates, both to promote the KHC and also to show people how it's done, I think is a really brilliant model, and she's very, very good at it. And Taryn and I have worked together on a couple of different projects now. And the thing that strikes me about when she's talking is that it kind of just feels the whole time like, this is no big deal. You can do this. You can do this. And then by the time the presentation's over, you realize you've covered a lot of ground in a very approachable format. So I thought those are both really great. And we all work together a lot, and I've learned a lot from both of them. So I just wanted to say it's an honor to be part of this panel with my colleague Emily as well. So I get put into the questionable position of sometimes trying to twist people's arms into potentially making more money, whether that be arguing with them or trying to encourage them to raise their prices at farmers markets, or as is the case tonight, to think about maybe doing some accepting cashless payments at your business. And so even if you are already accepting them, if there are vendors at your market or there's other folks that you work with who are not doing that, you might take some of these arguments that I'm going to make, or some of these points I'm going to make, to try to convince them to do it too. Because the more that you have a sense that your whole market is able to take cashless payments, suddenly that if that becomes the norm, or that becomes the understood reality of your market, it opens you up to a much wider customer base that doesn't want to have to stop by an ATM on the way to get to where you're going, or in the case of the EBT machine and accepting SNAP and other benefits and the double dollars program. That's a whole other segment of the population that we want to make sure we make feel welcome at our markets. And also there are some money available in certain formats that we have to do a little legwork to get to. So my brief pitch for why, and this is mainly on the credit card and debit card side, but my brief pitch for why you might want to accept some cashless payments is broken down into these three categories. And I'm going to talk about them just briefly here in a second, but less cash floating around. It's been on that trajectory for a while, and COVID really solidified that. Diversifying the opportunities to get money from different sales channels as from different customers that prefer different payment methods. And then the last one there is the pay to use, which I'll talk about in just a minute. So the first thing here is this idea that folks just aren't carrying cash at the same rate that they were, and they're not using it for cash for as many purchases in a typical week. And so this is a comparison. This is some survey research out of the Pew Research Center in last fall, so 2022. And you can see just since 2015, the number of folks who are doing none of their purchasing with cash is gone from 24% to 41%. And the thing that's notable about this too is that this is not necessarily a universal flat trend across all customers. So we actually know that from this rigorous sample based survey research, which gives us a pretty good indication of behavior, you could see if you focus on the bottom section here, so it's right now it's 50 up here, say 58% of people always have some cash on hand. 42% say that they don't really think about whether they have cash or not. But that number is significantly skewed when it comes to the age demographics that we're looking at. And so if you're over 50, you're more likely to have cash. This kind of checks out with things that we know and think about. But I think that as folks age, this group of people, this 18 to 49 currently, is going to become more and more of the overall segment of our markets. And so if folks aren't having cash, if half of the people or over half of the people in our customer base doesn't have access to cash in their pocket, they cannot give it to you if you don't accept their money in a different way. So that's the first thing. Cash is not king in the same way that it was before, especially for your customers. Another way that I like to think about this diversifying the customer base that you have access to. So let's say there's three different scenarios that you're at your given market or your given day of sales, and you're a cash only business in this case. So you have 30 cash customers, folks who are in that group who are carrying cash and willing to spend it. And let's say they spend about $20 each time that they make a purchase on average. That means you're going to have $600 in sales that you're going to make from those folks. Now you have the people who are in that bridge group. I would put myself in this bridge group. I don't necessarily always have $100 in cash on me, but I am likely to have at least $10 at a given time. And so as I'm, doing the universal, do I have my wallet hand motions, I'm thinking I probably have $10 in cash in my wallet. And I'm looking around for a little small sign that indicates that you take cards of some sort. If you don't accept cards and I got $10 in my wallet and you got something that I want, okay, me and my 29 other friends who are in that same boat on that given day are going to each give you our $10, and you're going to make $300 in sales. If you haven't, in the third scenario on the right here, if you have not gone through the process of thinking about setting up to take EBT or the double dollars or any of those various ways that we can open our markets to a wider base of customers, on that day, if somebody comes to the market and they have their EBT card and ask if you take it and you say no, you're going to get $0 in sales from that. Let's look at these same three scenarios if we are a little more flexible in the ways that we accept money. So first, I'm not telling you to turn your back on your cash customers and say, the US legal tender is no longer accepted here. And so in that case, you make the same amount of money. You're going to make $600 off those 30 cash customers. Let's say they spend $20 each. Now, the middle section, which to me is the focus of the Square and all those other ways of accepting credit cards, that's this group. Again, folks like me who, if I only get to spend the money that I have in cash in my wallet, you may be only getting $10 out of me. If you're able to offer me an object upon which I tap or slide or in some other way engage my credit card, you're probably going to make a lot more money off of me. And we know that in general, when people use plastic cards, they tend to spend more money. So we're trying to inverse Dave Ramsey them here, trying to get them to use that card so that they spend a little more money with us. And so if we do that, if we take our $10 cash sales and we convert those to $40 because we're encouraging people to spend on local products that are wholesome and great for our communities, putting those dollars back into schools and local municipalities, of course, all those good reasons, but spend at the farmer's market, we're going to take home $1,200 from those sales. And then lastly, if you've got some folks and they say, I got my EBT card, I heard about this double dollars thing. If you're able to say, yes, we do that, then suddenly their $40 becomes $80. Even just 10 of those customers come through, that's $800 there. And so I'm not particularly heavy on mathematics in my experience, but I'm going to say $2,600 is larger than $900. So that's this idea that we're trying to just diversify the number of consumers. We can say yes if you have cash. We can say yes if you have a credit card or debit card. We could say yes if you have a benefits card of some sort. That type of flexibility can lead to a lot more sales. But you're saying, hold on, Brett, cashless isn't free. Well, I've anticipated your move like a great chess master here. And okay, let's just say, yeah, I agree with you. It does cost money to do these things. And so the top here, this is just an example of cash only scenario. We have 30 folks come in, and let's just say they spend $10 each. Okay, I'm paying 0 transaction fees. Very nice. And then over here on the right, I'm paying 0 net fees. So basically they hand me $300. I get $300 in total sales. For the sake of all this, I'm not including tax because that's going to be the same no matter what you're doing. So you're worried that if you start to accept credit cards, you start to accept these other forms of payment, that's going to eat into your bottom line, right? Well, it will a little bit. So for the rest of the part, I'm going to be, for the rest of this chart here, I'm going to be using Square's actual fee structure. What they charge you if the free program is 10 cents per transaction, as long as you could swipe the card in person, and then 2.6% on top of that. Okay, so this is actual from the Square reader, from their current rates right now. And Emily's going to talk more about the specifics of that in a little bit. But so let's say we decide to be a little more flexible. Maybe we start using something like a Square reader, and suddenly we are able to tempt people into buying more. And so that instead of $30 sales at $10 each, we're going 30 sales at $40 each, kind of like what we talked about last time. But now we're accepting credit cards. And so part of our calculus here is that there's going to be fees associated. So if we take 10 cents per transaction for our 30 transactions, that's going to be a total of $3 in just flat fees. Now we say we took 30 sales at $40 each. Again, I'm not a mathematician, but I think that's $1,200. If we take 2.6% of our overall total sales, that's going to be $31.20. So now we have to take our per transaction fee, that second big column, and add it to our percent-based fee. And that means, and I put it in red with a yellow background because it hurts to just give some of that money back, right? We're going to lose $34.20. However, our net sales, that's going to be our total dollar sales minus our fees, is still going to be almost 4 times what we were making before. So and it makes sense, right? We increased our sales numbers by $40 by 4 times per average sale. So we're going to have about 4 times as much. And overall, to me, now this is just my math here, I don't mind giving back $34.20 if I'm going to get almost $800 more. So here's another scenario. This is just that you have more transactions. So you still have the folks that you're dealing with they're only going to spend $10 no matter what, but there's 5 additional people that you can now reach because you're accepting cashless payments. This is kind of a nightmare scenario in terms of the math on this, because what you don't want to do is have a whole bunch of extra transactions with each of them at a smaller amount, because the fees add up. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, we add 5 more people to our sales. Okay, so we have 10 cents of fees times 35 sales. That's $3.50. We have an additional, or they're only spending $10. So we have 35 times 10, that's $350. So we've brought in more revenue, but those fees, they're going to get us, right? Well, you could do the math here. 2.6% times 350 is $9.10. We're going to lose a total of $12.60 with that per transaction fee plus the percent-based fee. And then we're still, even though we sold $350 worth of product, and maybe there's some math there that you might get upset about, you're still bringing in overall more revenue. So I'll just briefly pause to say, if you are currently selling every single amount of product that you ever want to sell, like you don't want to produce more, you don't want to sell more, you don't want to even charge more, then none of this stuff's necessarily going to apply to you. But if you are interested in moving more volume, you're interested in maybe increasing prices and thinking about that, this needs to be part of your plan or your considerations. So the last one here is the ideal scenario, and I think it's the one that the data suggests is going to be the direction that your sales will head if you can start to accept non-cash payments. Is you got larger sales and you got more of them. So $2,000 worth of sales, again, we're doing 50 transactions, so that's 10 cents each. That's $5 right off the top. On top of that, $2,000 times 2.6%, $52. That's a net fees of $57. So don't get me wrong, we are giving back $57 in fees. But the thing that you have to remember is this is not just a ding. This isn't just someone coming and stealing your money. You're ultimately paying for a service. And as I think Bethany said earlier, when you're thinking and conceptualizing your marketing strategy, part of your sales strategy needs to be, is it worth it to me? And I think overall, again, using the Square language here and the actual fees that are based in it, using that actual data, I would have a tendency to be able to be focused on how can I get access to these types of numbers, because I'm not a big fan of cash. I don't carry it myself, and plastic is just it's such a simpler thing. And with COVID especially, we saw the dieback of cash. The last point I'll make before I turn it over to Emily is that in the case of most of these services, these payment services, you are only paying for it when you use it. What I mean by that is if you take your Square, you get your Square app, you get your reader, you get all that stuff, you get it all dialed together, and then you realize nobody wants to pay me with these cards. Well, you don't pay for that until you swipe a card. You don't pay a fee. Now, I put up here other examples of things that are not that way. You don't get to go down to the equipment dealer and say, I'd like to finance a tractor, but I'm only going to pay for it when I use it, right? You can hire that stuff out, and it's a whole secondary question. But as far as an actual tool that you have that's available to you that you can use anytime and you only pay for it when you use it, seeds, same way. You can't, when you're going through and in this time of year especially, you're binge ordering tons of cool seeds for pretty flowers and fun vegetables. You don't get to say, well, I'll wait and see if I plant them and then I'll pay you for them. So it is a relatively low risk way to open up some opportunities. I'm not gonna touch on the hows and whys of getting into the accepting EBT side of things. We have many resources, and a lot of that needs to be followed up on a one-to-one basis. But so this is just my little pitch for why. And again, maybe you are like, yes, of course, duh, I got Square like 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Awesome. That's great. But if you have folks that you're trying to convince or trying to help to understand why they might want to, I'm a worrier. I have anxiety about lots of different things. And this would be one. If this was new to me and I didn't understand it, hadn't been so familiar with it, I think I would have some anxiety about doing this. And so my solution is to do exactly what I did. Let's write down some scenarios. Let's write down some good scenarios. Let's write down some bad scenarios and just see how it plays out. And in general, I am old enough to have gone back to the time when charging a credit card sounded kind of like loading a shotgun, cha-ching, cha-ching, and we had to dial it, use the phone line to dial it in. And my uncle's independent store, at that point, it was 25 cents per swipe. And I believe it was a 5% fee on every credit card at that point. And so a quarter plus 5%, I mean, it added up. Things have come down, things have gotten a little bit more streamlined. And Emily's going to talk you through a little bit more of the logistics of how those things have changed and improved.
Awesome. So if you are not currently accepting cashless payments, I think that it's probably much easier than you think it is. Just as Brett was saying, it's improved a lot, especially over the past couple of years. Square rapidly evolved with all of the COVID stuff and is now incredibly integrated with online selling and in-person selling and things like that. So it can be really cool if you want to integrate all of your sales outlets. So another thing I want to say before I go into these a little bit in more detail is that I have all these different platforms listed here, but they're actually almost all of them can be integrated in one way or another. So if you currently have Square, you can accept Google Pay and Apple Pay with your Square terminal, which is really cool. Like, someone has an Apple Watch and they have their Apple Pay information loaded into there, they can just tap that to your Square terminal and pay for their order that way, which is really incredible. So these aren't mutually exclusive by any means, but they are four of the most popular payment platforms for accepting cashless payments. So again, we'll start with Square, definitely the most popular. It's really great because it's specifically set up for small businesses, and it also has a variety of other features, like payroll, really, really good customer management system, which could be, particularly interesting to this group. With Square, you can easily set up an online store if you're interested in letting customers order online. That could be for shipping, but also it could just be order ahead of time for maybe market day pickup. And the thing that we particularly like about Square is that it does a lot of the record keeping for you, which these other platforms won't necessarily do. So, if you currently accept cash transactions and cashless, or maybe you just do cash and you record it a certain way, Square can actually absorb that data if you enter it into it, and it can consolidate your cash and cashless payments into one report, which is really, really incredible, especially at the end of the day when it's been a really long weekend and you don't want to sit there for hours consolidating your transactions. It'll just do it for you. PayPal is a really interesting one. So I know PayPal, I think, is probably the oldest platform out of all of these. I know that it's been around, I think, since like the early 2000s. But it's actually becoming more popular with businesses lately. So PayPal just started a couple of years ago, PayPal Business, which is different than like a personal PayPal account. In order, to be able to accept a wide variety of payments. So all different kinds of credit card payments, and also like bank transactions. If you're doing like invoices to, other businesses, you do have to have a PayPal business account, not just a PayPal personal account. So just like Square and just like Brett was mentioning, PayPal does not have a fee associated with setting up an account. It's just based on the amount of transactions that you do. So I'm actually going to skip over to Venmo. I know it's listed last, but Venmo and PayPal are owned by the same company now. So Venmo is just an app that a lot of people have on their phone that they use for like personal transactions. So like, like splitting a pizza or something like that. But it's also a really, really nice way to accept payments, because it's for the customer, it's the exact same way they would send, a payment to their buddy. They would just pay you at the market or wherever. So super easy on the customer side, but it goes into your PayPal account. So you can't just have a Venmo account anymore if you're a business. It has to be, well, you can, but you have to go through PayPal's thing anyway. So it's the same. So the third arrow there, we have Google Pay and Apple Pay. So these are both contactless payments. So that means there's no actual contact between you and your customer. They're not touching a card to you. Maybe they're touching their watch to your terminal, but a lot of the times what they do is they just enter the information into their phone. So they'll have a credit card or debit card saved onto their app on their phone. So Google Pay is usually for Android users, Apple Pay for Apple users. And then they can just pay you directly through their phone instead of having any kind of like personal transaction between you and the customer. So you don't always have to have a terminal with that. Like I said, they can just pay it through their app. But like I was mentioning earlier with the Square, it is really easy to accept with a terminal as well. So as far as I understand, Google Pay actually does not have any transactions associated with it, transaction fees. So that is an outlier amongst this group. But as far as like integrating Google Pay payments with your bank, there are more limitations. So not all banks accept Google Pay payments. So you might have to set up like a separate bank account, which is kind of a pain, obviously. So definitely something to look into if you're considering getting a Google Pay account. So we'll go on to the next one, Brett. Awesome. So we talked with Stepping Stone Farm about their experience with cashless payments. They do use Square currently, not only to accept their cashless payments, but also they use it for payroll, for their marketing. They track income through Square. So they noted that they're able to collect customers' email addresses through Square, which is helpful for marketing campaigns. Because Square is the most popular point of sale system for easily accepting cashless payments, we're actually going to walk through with a little video we made of making a Square account. And I want to say, even if you already have a Square account, like Brett said, I've had this for 5 years. Like, this is like super old news. Aside from the first bit where it's actually just me signing up for an account, there might be some capabilities, that you haven't particularly considered up to this point. So maybe worth taking a look at. And then we're also gonna have this on our YouTube channel in a couple of days. So if you would like to access it there, and if you have further questions, obviously feel free to reach out.
Okay, I think we should be good to go.
Hello everyone. In this presentation, we will be doing a brief overview of how to set up a Square account. A Square account is an easy-to-use point-of-sale system that will allow you to accept credit and debit cards, as well as other contactless payments such as Apple Pay and Google Pay. What I really want to emphasize today is that you can customize your Square account, so you can go from very simple to more complex. With both options, you can set up an account and begin accepting payments immediately. Today in this presentation, we are going to set up the simplest Square account possible, where we will only be using Square to accept in-person payments. So I'm going to be setting up a Square account alongside you today. I have not created a Square account in several years, so I'll be really walking through this process as someone who has little to no knowledge of the process at the start. So hopefully this will mirror your own experience in trying to set up an account for the very first time. So to start out, you can just search Square on Google. It should be the first thing to pop up. Here you'll have the home screen of the Square website. Because we don't have one, we're going to click Get Started. Let's see, it's going to ask us to create our account. So you're going to type in your email. I would recommend your business email, definitely an email you always have access to at any time of day. Going to create a password that is related to our business and that we'll remember so we can log back in later. It's going to ask you for your region. Let's see, it's going to ask me to create my password again just because I clicked the region button. So it auto selects United States. And just like that, we have an account. So after this, it's going to ask us a couple details about what kind of business we are. So just for purposes of the example, I'm just going to make up a business name. I'm not going to put in an EIN. Let's say I have 1 to 10 employees. I make a revenue 50 to 100,000 a year. And then let's see, you can either click mobile business. So if you don't have a brick and mortar that you'll be generally selling at, if you're going to be traveling around to different markets or things like that, that might be a good option. So you don't have to list an address there. Let's see, it's trying to find my address here in my office. And let's see, it's not registering it. Okay, so let's see. We'll just type in the street address of this area. There we go, popping up, auto-populates. Perfect. Let's see, good to go. We'll go from there. All right, what kind of business do you run? So this is just going to kind of help Square tailor some of the options towards something that might be helpful to me. So I'm going to say I do outdoor markets, so primarily sell at farmers markets. Where will you sell? So you can choose a couple different options. Again, this is just to help Square kind of tailor the options to you that make the most sense. So I'm going to do a brick and mortar, at an event. I'm just going to go with those two for now. So how will you take payments? You can decide here. I'm just going to go mobile phone because I want it to be as easy as possible. I don't want to deal with a bunch of other things, so I'll just go from there. Let's see. Square has a bunch of options that can also help you with other things in your business, but I just really want to use it as a point of sale system, nothing else. I manage my employees and payroll elsewhere, so I'm just going to stick with that. So right away, we can start taking payments. So here it's asking me to verify my identity, just to make sure I'm a real person and that I am able to accept payments properly. So let's see, I'll just type in my phone number here really quick. Date of birth. It's asking my last 4 digits of my social. Home address, same as business address. I'm just going to go with that for now. Let's see if it verifies that I'm a real person here. It's taking a minute to load. That's totally fine. There we go. Verified my identity. All right, so it's going to ask me some personal questions over the next couple things just to make sure, again, that I'm a real person and can accept payments. These are pretty straightforward, so I'll just leave them on here so you can see them. Nothing too crazy personal. Awesome. So now it's asking me where we should send my processed sales. So at the end of the day, once I've collected all my payments at the market, where do I want that to go? So I can choose a Square checking account where they'll actually set up a checking account for me, a next day business transfer, which is what I'm going to go with. So again, I won't get the money transferred into my account until the next day, but it is free to do so. So here's where I would link my business bank account. I do not have a business bank account. Obviously, this is just an example, so I will not be filling this out right now. So I'm just going to hit skip and do that later. Here it's asking what kind of hardware I would be interested in. So it says at the top there that with my account, I'll actually be getting 1 free Square reader for MagStripe. So that's like to swipe a credit card or debit card. So I'm actually going to deselect both of these options because I'll be getting 1 for free anyway with my account. So I'm going to deselect. I'm just going to hit skip because I'm not going to be ordering any hardware right now. That's the great thing about Square too, is that you can accept payments without any additional hardware at all, which is really, really nice for someone who's looking for a low investment up front. So this is the Square dashboard. If I had made sales today, or last week, it would kind of show me trends and things like that. So I'm just going to finish all of this stuff later. So this is basically my home page of my account. You can see here it says I'm 10% set up. It can kind of walk you through the other steps you need to do in order to get properly set up. But I'm not going to be doing any of that because, I don't have a bank account for my make-believe business I have here. There, I do want to download the app on my iPhone because that's how I will be accepting payments at my farmer's market. So I'm going to type in my email here so that it'll send me a link to download the app. You can also just find the app on the App Store. So this goes for iPhone or Android, either one. The Square app is available on both. So there we go. It's going to send me an email later so I can set that up on my phone. Also, I'm able to accept payments right from here, so right from my desktop. So let's say I have a tablet or desktop at my farmer's market booth connected to Wi-Fi, and I wanted to accept payments from here. So you can kind of just make your own item. This is similar to a cash transaction. You record your cash transactions somehow. Exact same way. I'm just typing in, a random credit card number here. This is how I would accept it. So instead of swiping or anything like that, I can just type it directly in here. You can kind of see the other options they have here as well. This is an interesting one, send payment link. So it seems like you can email your customer or text your customer a link and they can pay straight from their phone, so they can type in their own credit card number. I'm going to add a note here of what they're ordering or what they bought, just so I can keep that note later on, to be easy to go back and consolidate with my cash payments so I don't forget. So this is where I would add an item if I had any items in my library, but again, I just set up my account, so I don't have anything. So I'm just doing the quick charge right now. I would hit charge, but I'm going to hit reset because I'm not actually going to charge anything right now. So go back to the Square dashboard. So that's one way to accept a payment right off the bat. The other way is to add items. So if you have, particularly value-added items that are standard and that you're going to have, on a regular basis, let's say maybe some blackberry jam. I know I'm going to have, several weeks this summer. So I'm going to type in blackberry jam. I could do a description and a category if I want, upload an image, all for my own organization, but I'm not going to do any of that because I'm just doing a super simple store for my own organization. So let's see, how do I add a price here? So you can kind of scroll down, see all the different options. You can add an option. So if you have different sizes, maybe of jams, let's see, there's no price. So I need to go back and edit. And we'll find where I put the price in for this. So this will be super easy, again, for like standardized items I have. So I know that, I'll have these items, and I could even just put jam if I want, but it's, better to be more descriptive for your own record keeping. We'll add a couple more items just for examples. Let's see what else will I have at my imaginary market stand. We're going to have some whole wheat bread. Delicious. So I'll go down here again and add the price of this whole wheat bread that I'm going to be selling. Perfect. I'm going to save it. I'm going to add one more item just for an example, and I'm going to have some honey. So for the honey, I'm going to sell a couple different sizes. So what I want to do is add some variations. So let's see. We have regular, not that, option. Option's not what I'm looking for. Here we go, add variation. Perfect. So I'm going to, let's see, I have a 12-ounce honey that I'm going to charge $15 for. So that's one size of honey. Create and add another. I also sell an 8-ounce honey, and I'm going to sell that for $12. I'll hit done. Perfect. You can see my different sizes of honey there. Hit save. Perfect. Now you can see my 3 different items that I've already added to my store. Again, this is for quick add transactions. So when I'm taking a payment, so let's say a customer comes up to my booth, I am ready to sell them something. Instead of going into the quick charge part of the top and adding a note, I'm actually going to go to the itemized, and I can just go there and select items. Let's see, someone wants to buy a 12-ounce honey, and then let's see what else. Blackberry jam. Perfect. And this is where, again, I could manually enter that credit card, or I could accept a contactless payment with my iPhone. Or again, once I get that mag stripe reader in that Square is going to send me, then I'll be able to swipe their debit or credit card. So now I'm going to download the app onto my phone. I think probably, most people will be collecting payments through Square via a phone or maybe a tablet. So this is the iPhone App Store. So I'm just going to go there and search Square. I also received an email with the link to download this. If you remember earlier on the desktop version, I had requested that. But you can also just go to the Apple Store or the Android Store, type in Square, and it should be one of the first ones to pop up, and you can download it right onto your phone to start accepting payments. So there we go. It's downloaded. I'm going to open it. It's going to ask me if it would like to find and connect devices on my local network. I'm going to hit allow just because, in the event that I do end up getting a receipt printer or something like that in the future, that will already be able to connect to them. So I'm going to go in and type in the information that I created on my account online. And you can actually do all of this straight from the app. I just like to do it on a bigger screen before, transferring it over to my phone. But this is just some extra security measures they're showing me here. So I'm not going to do that right now. So I'm going to enable all of these things just so that the Square app has access to anything it needs to on my phone to help me process payments quicker and move through customers more quickly. So there we go. Start using Square. This use iPhone to accept contactless payments option. So for those of you that like to tap your credit card at the grocery store and know what I'm talking about, this could be a good option. If you have no idea what this is, do not worry about it. Definitely not necessary in order to accept cashless payments. here it's just asking me to do some add-ons. I'm not going to do that. And I'm just going to go straight to take my first payment. So I'm going to do the walkthrough, the green button. Here is my favorites tab. So what I can do here is add any kind of, favorite items, maybe my most popular items that I have that I sell, every week. I know I'm going to sell these 3 things or these 10 things. So I can go to my items that I created on my desktop version, add them here. You can see they're populating here. So these will be super easy to access if anyone's trying to buy them in the future. You can see the favorites tab at the top right-hand corner of the screen. So on this next order, I just added the bread. I'm also going to go and key in another item that I don't have entered, which is going to be $5 for, I'm going to make a note, this is going to be for 3 ears of corn that someone's buying. Just adding the notes that I can go back and look and know exactly what I sold at that time. So review sale, yes, they got the whole wheat bread, they got the 3 ears of corn, check, and I'm going to hit charge. After charge, here's where I can select how they're going to pay. So I can either do the tap to pay, I can do manual credit card entry, which is what you saw me do on the desktop version. So I'm just going to type in random credit card here. It's obviously not a real one, so it's not going to go through, but if it had, I would hit charge and then would have processed into my bank account. So you could either, it's asking me if I want to continue. I'm actually going to leave the tutorial at this point just so we can see what else we got going on our homepage. So can kind of click around. These are just different things that Square has the ability to do. Definitely not necessary to do any of these. You can just use it as a point of sale system. I don't have any transactions yet, so that's what it's showing me there. What's new? It has some new tutorials I can walk through, which is super helpful. Not going to do any of those right now. Let's see. Just going through all the things I have. I can actually create new items on here. Something else that can be super helpful is that you can actually record your cash transactions through Square. So this way you don't have to work at the end of the day to consolidate your cash and credit card transactions, but Square will actually do it for you if you lock them. So you can just go to the transaction. When you go to hit charge, you actually hit cash. From there, you can just record the payment, and they'll ask if your customer wants a receipt. You can send them a text message receipt, which is really nice. You don't have to fool with any paper receipts. It sent them the receipt. I typed in my own phone number there, so we should be seeing it pop up hopefully in a couple seconds showing that your customer received their receipt. Yep, right there. So this is just kind of showing you that, Square has a capability to really take away a lot of the paper that you use, even for your cash transactions. So here you can see your sales report. If you log your cash transactions, it'll include your digital and your cash transactions, which is really nice. You can go back and see items that sold well, trends maybe that you have over the past month or the past year, the past couple months, things like that. So it's really showing you that Square has a lot more capability than just processing your digital payments. So that was just an overview of how to set up a Square account so that you are able to accept credit, debit, and contactless payments for your farm business.
All right. I'm not sure if everyone can hear me. Okay. My internet dropped out there for a little bit. So yeah, just to close out, some things to consider when you're trying to think about what kind of cashless payment platform might work for you and your business. All or mostly all digital transaction platforms have a fee associated with them. And I saw some discussions in the chat about how some people offset that. So just definitely something to consider and what works best for your business. Something that we talk about a lot is maybe requiring a minimum transaction amount for these digital ones. So instead of maybe charging more for them, it's just, in order to use a credit card here, you have to have at least $15 worth of product. So not only does that help you kind of offset that because you're getting more dollar, it also kind of upsells the customer a little bit, which is really nice. Depending on which platform you're using, you have to consolidate your cash and digital receipts, which some of them can do for you, like we just saw in Square. And then just remember that cashless isn't free, but it definitely has the potential to boost your sales significantly. So these are upcoming training opportunities. This is a crowd I thought would be interested in these because we are part of the Market Ready training program. I don't know if anyone here has ever been a part of our training, but essentially what it is training producers to get their products into restaurants, schools, other institutions. And so we go over a wide variety of topics. These first two, 320 and 324, are just kind of a broad overview of basically everything you see underneath. So we have these broad overview trainings, and then we call the bottom ones advanced topics, where we really delve into these. We have professionals come in, other producers come in that have, been in this space before and kind of talk about these things more in depth. So these are all upcoming. I'll drop the link in the chat if you want to sign up. They are free. And oh, nice, Mackenzie, thank you, awesome. Please sign up. We'd love to have you. And then here's our contact information if anyone wants to reach out about any other questions.
Thank you so much. Brett and Emily were really on it and answered all of the questions in the chat. So if anyone was looking for an answer to those, you can look through. A key point that I wanted to make for Brett and Emily is just that they are not endorsing Square specifically. They're not endorsing anything. They have seen a lot of success with this and wanted to help walk through and make this seem, like I said before, a little less daunting because it can be kind of intimidating. And with so many different options out there, I know personally I would love to hear about the ones that you've seen success with. And that would be the first one that I would try if I were going down that avenue. So if anyone has any last minute questions, pop those into the chat. I can just go over a few of them. There were a few questions that people were asking about passing on that credit card transaction fee onto the customer. Brett had some good points about depending on your customer, whether you're in an urban or a rural area, in some sort of way or another, you're already passing on that fee, whether you're charging just more for your product in general. But you might have a harder time in a rural area with passing on a direct credit card fee, because I know there are, even in Lexington, there are some farms who will tell you the price. They'll say it's $18. The minute you pull out your card, they say, oh, there's actually going to be a 3% fee. And that can rub people the wrong way. So sometimes farms will just already build in a 3% assumption that they're going to be using the cashless options. There was another person that commented about the fact they have Square set up and they really don't use it that much, but the few times that they do use it, it's for large orders and it makes it all worth it. So that goes back to Brett talking about really just like pay per use or pay to use. You're really not out anything, just having it set up and having that option available is really helpful. And as someone that does not carry cash and basically blacks out when I pull out my card at a farmer's market, I can very rightfully say that people will spend a lot more when you pull out a card because you just keep adding on, and somehow plastic money doesn't feel like real money until it's time to pay your bills. So it is really interesting to see that chart. Brett has given a talk before talking about, how to price your product and whether you are undervaluing your product yourself and just how to make those adjustments. So I'll make sure that we get that. I'm pretty sure that's recorded. We'll get that into the resource page as well, because that is a huge part of all of this, is valuing yourself, making sure you're charging enough that if you do cashless, that you'll make the money back, as Brett showed. I mean, $57 compared to making and taking home $1,900 is just a drop in the bucket. So it can all be just really helpful. And there's a lot of love in the chat for Square. A lot of people who like it to just keep them really organized. And Mackenzie had mentioned talking about customers, and Emily said that you can really keep a nice customer profiles in Square. So it just seems like a really nice, clean platform, but by all means, you can give it a try Venmo, try PayPal, try all the other different options. And I'm sure that whether it's Brett or Emily or a number of our other partners, because I think all of us have fielded some questions about cashless payments over the past couple of years. And I know Sharon Spencer did a cashless payments talk or session during the farmers market short course at Fruit and Veg conference, that we all encounter this. And like I said before, it's just an option to consider for your business, and seems to be a really great option and a little bit easier now that we've gotten to see that tutorial. So we'll make sure that we get that in the resource page as well. Any final questions, anyone? Last chance. You have the contact information here. So if you have a very hyper specific question, I'm sure Brett and Emily would be able to help you with that.